We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk, 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1410 KERI, and now in Albuquerque, New Mexico at 1000 KKIM. Our guest by phone, Bulls and Bears analyst, new author of a great new book that's coming out in September, Tobin Smith. So, Tobin, I'm sorry I had to interrupt you there because we were coming up on a hard break.
No worries.
As you were saying,
my rant is just basically that I remember the whole idea of quote-unquote Affordable Care Act and or Obamacare was that there was quote-unquote 30 million people who were not insured, and we all know from the actual statistics that, well, there was about 18 million or more, maybe up to 20 million, that were eligible for existing health plans, but just weren't participating. So now it's our job to, tell these people what they're supposed or not supposed to do. Our job is not, however, to push them in a system where where it doesn't work. And so what we did then is by creating this the Affordable Care Act, we said, well, we're going to extend Medicaid which is a federal state indigent basically health care plan. We're going to raise the level of what it is to be indigent to such a high level that anybody making $50,000 or less is eligible. A, and then B, we're going to put them in a system where in some areas of the country, 60% of the doctors won't take Medicaid patients. So of the 40% that will take Medicaid, we're going to create a reimbursement structure that is 50% lower than what they get for taking someone off the street. So guess what? Now we're going to push all these people in the system. They're going to have much less doctors. The doctors are going to take it, are going to scream, and not, there's going to be big lines of people, which is going to then have them raise the reimbursement rate, which is the only thing that can happen because there's not enough doctors. I mean, it's pure economics, and everything in the Obamacare Affordable Care Act, for the most part, are antithetical or is the reverse of economics. That would be saying that healthcare itself is antithetical to economics. But it's 2,700 pages, 141 new agencies, and how on earth any human being would expect that to add efficiency to an already inefficient system is just mind-boggling, and now I'll shut up.
Well, some of the things you're going to see, increased unemployment as an example, reduction in hours. We're seeing limited benefits. For example, I have a plan for groups over 50 for $100 a month. I can give them a limited benefit plan that meets all the rules, regulations, and requirements. So we're going to see a lot less coverage and a lot more cost.
Well, here's another. I love this example in France. In France, they came up with this idea that if you have 50 employees or more, it's basically impossible to fire someone. So guess what? What economy in the world has the most 49-person employees in the world? It's France. They have something like 800,000 companies that have 49 employees. I mean, is that statistically possible? No, but behavior follows incentivization, and so I'm sure that we're going to have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of 49-person companies to try to avoid the other deal. Or, as you say, if you can come up with a plan that meets the bare minimums, you're going to offer it right to people who are less than 30 hours of work, right?
Yep. No, offer to people with more than 30 hours of work so that they don't qualify for the exchanges that the Obamacare is setting up.
Ah, okay. Well, all right. So again, they're going to get less coverage. They're going to pay higher premiums, and they're also going to pay more out of their pocket, which I don't know why it gets me on the other rant. But the other rant that just bothers the hell out of me is the idea that middle class wages haven't grown. Take-home wages haven't grown in the last 20 years. You could even say 30 years on inflation-adjusted basis. But guess what? Employee benefit costs have gone up an average of 7.8 to 8.5% a year. Where did those bonuses, where did those wages go? They went into benefits. And we created this crazy benefit system where employers can pay my health insurance or life insurance bill or other type of employee benefits, and that benefit is non-taxable to me as an employee. Well, that, of course, is just insane. And it started in 1942 at the Kaiser shipyard when they wanted to get women in to work between the 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning shifts, and nobody wanted to do it, and they couldn't pay them any more money because of price controls or wage controls. So they asked the IRS for a one-time exemption so they could pay health benefits to these women from the Permanente Health Group. That's where Kaiser Permanente got together.
Right.
And they said, yeah, because it's only going to last for the war, right? So the program started in 1943. The war ended in 1945. And somehow the exemption of benefit, of premiums as income has stayed with us to this day, and it's one of the real big reasons that our system is so distorted that we consume so much health care because it's all quote-unquote free, so why wouldn't you? If you went to a restaurant and the caviar was free, there would be no sturgeon left in the world. There would be no caviar left in the world.
Exactly.
So we created all these distortions in the system, and then we take that horrible program and we add 30 more million people to it, because if something horrible with 80 million people is bad, then something with 110 million people is better. Don't quite understand it all.
Yeah. Tobin Smith is our guest. Hey,
Yeah.
Tobin, when we have you back in September, we're going to have you on for the whole hour. We're going to talk about your new book, next big thing. I mean, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I know. We've got about 3.5 minutes left, and Clay's got another question for you.
Well, I just wanted to mention, I don't know if you're aware, but certain groups have got exemptions from the Obamacare. One of those groups is the Muslim population, because they don't believe in gambling, and they believe health care is gambling. Were you aware of that?
No, I had not. I'm looking it up on the internet right now just to make sure you're not full of it, because that sounds like the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Well,
go to Snoops. Yeah, they're the largest group that has an exemption, and of course unions right now are applying for exemptions, and they're the ones who really went after getting this passed.
Well, yeah, so the unions is very interesting. So if you're a Taft-Hartley Act, you guys know all this stuff, but if you're a Taft-Hartley health plan, you're actually a self-funded health plan. And let me just pull back for a second. What people I don't think really understand here is that the way we've constructed quote-unquote health insurance, it's not insurance. It's prepaid health care. If you go in and you have existing health care issues that you know is going to cost $8,500 a year or $25,000 a year, you're not paying insurance anymore. Insurance under the concept that something catastrophic happens to you, or something that out of the blue you get, or et cetera. That was an insurance idea. That's gone away. These Taft-Hartley Act guys are now discovering that that their rates are going to have to go up, and they're going to have much less benefits if they go under Obamacare. And they're the ones who supported, the act. They never really got the fine print. It's always the fine print, gentlemen, that gets you out of a 2,700-page rule, right?
No question about it. Hey, Toby, we've got about 2 minutes left, and I want to shift gears real quick. Your predictions. Is the economy going up or down? I mean, I heard you say that this market is undervalued. Do you really think it is? Because, it's based on paper money being thrown in by the administration.
Well, first off, paper money is being thrown in by the Federal Reserve, which is not elected in this group. But everything has to be assets have to be relative to everything else. That's how valuation happens. And yes, not only the United States Federal Reserve, but the Japanese, the European, the Russian, every other central bank has, in one way or shape or form, added, I think the number is now $15 trillion in money into the system, and they do that by buying bonds. And when you buy those bonds, you raise the price of the bond, which lowers the interest rate. So relative to everything else, we've had a 30-year bond bull market. How many bull markets have you ever heard lasted 30 years? Well, it lasted 30 years because since 1980, we had this massive inflation. We had this huge disruption in the economy, all right? Well, similarly, in the stock market, we had such a disruption. Two-thirds of the value, for crying out loud, went away in many stocks, et cetera, during the big crash. So the climb back up has just been get to a normal, relative value of what a corporation is worth. Then you compare it to the very low interest rates that we're going to have certainly for the next 2 to 3 years, and you have to make an investment. Yes, stocks are relatively inexpensive towards bonds, and bonds got as expensive as they possibly could be. Yet most of the money in mutual funds and ETFs, et cetera, in the last 2 years, has gone into bonds. So unfortunately, you have a whole set of people who pay top price for bonds, I just go back to 1994 when interest rates, rose as an inflation issue, and bond funds were down 25%. People bought bonds thinking that they never went down in value. And so I always encourage your listeners to look at what they own in their 401ks or their plans or IRAs. And if it's a lot of bond funds, this is the time to take those profits and start to look at global stocks that pay very high dividends.
Toby, we're out of time. We got to have you back in September, okay?
All right. Well, listen, people can come to NBT, Nancy Baker Todd, NBTinvestor.com, and look at our new newsletters and look at the stuff we do, and we'll always love to have them.
Highly recommend it. Toby, thank you for the time, and we'll talk to you in September.
All right, Marty. Thanks, man.
We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.